Well, let's go to another issue now. Chris Bowen, of course, yesterday announced the government's latest push to get us all driving electric vehicles by the end of the decade. So buckle up. We're getting a new fuel efficiency standard for Australia, which is basically a pollution cap on all new vehicles in the country. Some say that will push us back into the second-hand car market. We'll see. They also want a whole lot more to help understand what some of this detail is. Joining me now, the founder of CarExpert Australia, Paul Maric. Paul, I'm delighted to have you on the show. I listen to you often when you're on radio, and I thought, let's get an expert in who knows a lot more about the car end of the business and not so much the politics out of Canberra. Take us through what these fuel efficiency standards mean and what are the government's targets here for EV sales?
Yeah, look, Australia has become a bit of a dumping ground for cars, and these are cars that manufacturers can't offload in Europe and in other countries where they do actually have standards. And as a result of that, we are getting kind of the raw end of the deal as a punter if you do want to buy a car in Australia. So the government's come out and said, well, we're going to put standards in place. We're going to fine manufacturers who keep bringing these cars to Australia, and they want to incentivise them to actually bring more efficient cars, and that also means more electric vehicles to Australia as well.
But aren't some of these cars that they want to basically divert us away from some of the top-selling utes and trucks and cars that Australians, SUVs that Australians are buying?
Yeah, so it sounds like a great idea on top, but then when you actually delve into it, it sounds like a bit of a terrible idea, actually. And that is because if you look at the two best-selling cars in Australia, the Toyota Hilux, the Ford Ranger, both of those vehicles aren't available in even a mild hybrid, which is the simplest form of electrification you can get. So if the government comes out and says, OK, well, we're going to fine Ford and Toyota for selling this car in Australia, they're not going to sell it in Australia anymore. And you, as someone who needs to drive a dual cab ute for work, I really don't understand what you're meant to buy. And these manufacturers don't offer electric versions of these vehicles in Australia yet, and there are really none on the horizon at the moment.
Give us a sense of what the price differential is between an electric vehicle and a comparable fossil fuel vehicle.
Yeah, look, that's a secondary issue here as well. If we have a look at one of Australia's best-selling electric vehicles, the Tesla Model Y, I bought one of those. It's a great car to drive around in, but the problem is it's a $70,000 car, and that is the cheapest one they sell. If you then have a look at something like a Toyota RAV4, which is one of the best-selling internal combustion vehicles in Australia that is an SUV, that's around the $40,000 to $50,000 mark. So immediately you're pricing the average Australian out of getting into a car simply by excluding the type of car they can buy in Australia. So the government needs to look at incentives to make electric vehicles better and cheaper for the average consumer.
All right, now when I have to change the battery in my diesel car, yes, it's a diesel, dirty diesel, but I love it. It's a couple of $100 and a bit of inconvenience. What happens when I need to change the battery in my electric car? Can I do it? And what's the sort of cost?
Okay, so you'll be up for over $20,000 in a typical electric car. The bigger the battery is, the more expensive it costs. Unfortunately, the battery is the most expensive portion of an electric car at the moment, which is why it is so expensive to replace. The good news, on the other hand, though, is that most of the electric cars on the market come with an 8-year guarantee for their batteries, so it's not something you're going to need to do anytime soon. But obviously, you don't want to be buying a second-hand electric car at the moment because, like anything, as technology evolves, you're going to be left with something that is severely outdated in the years to come.
So hang on, let me just go over that one again. So I'm already going to pay more for my electric car, so it's 70 grand, let's say it's a Tesla, and I've only got a warranty of 8 years on my battery. Now, there could well be a case where you go at the end of the 8 years, you're better off to just dump that car, and God help the landfill of a Tesla car, but you get rid of that car because it's cheaper to go out and buy a new car than it is perhaps to replace the battery and any warranty you might get. I mean, $20,000 to replace a battery, how's that affordable?
Yeah, it is a lot of money, and ironically, despite EVs being at record sales numbers globally, last year there was actually a spike in the price of batteries and all the raw materials. So the cost of developing this technology is currently going up. So there is hope that it will come back down as this technology evolves. But yeah, you don't want to be left with an electric vehicle once the battery expires because A, you have to get rid of it, which is difficult to do, and B, you also have to spend a lot of money to actually replace it as well.
Paul, just tell me, give us a sense, your take on the government's roadmap really for charging stations in and around capital cities, but really critically, regional Australia.
Look, they're garbage at the moment, and just 2 weeks ago I had to go charge our car. There were 6 chargers here at this site. 2 were working, so I had to wait an hour to get access to the charger. The worst part is that a lot of these chargers are government funded, which means taxpayers are paying for these unreliable chargers that don't work. We've reached out to Arena, which is the agency that dishes out this money. They just haven't responded in the past 10 days regarding how many of these are actually faulty. So it is pretty disappointing that taxpayer money is being wasted on these chargers that just don't work.
Paul, I'm pretty cranky. I have to pull over and fill up my car and wait 15 minutes to fill the tank and go in and pay. An hour? Is that a usual sort of time?
Yeah, look, when it is busy, that is what you'll be waiting. Just recently at Easter, they had queues even longer than that. So that is just to get access to the charger. You then have to wait another 30 minutes to an hour. So my advice is don't do it if you have a 2-year-old in the back seat.
Good Lord. All right, Paul Maric, great to have you on the program. Fantastic to get that sort of granular detail. See you again soon.